Hi, this is Richard Perry with Chief Automotive. Today we're going to talk about the features and benefits of our Chief MultiMig 525. This is a 230 volt welder, single phase. This allows us to do double pulse welding for aluminum, silicone bronze, or steel. With the 3 torches, you've got one side that's set up for steel, the other side we've got set up for aluminum and silicone bronze on this side. This is a programmable welder. We choose the wire that we're using, set the program, and all we have to do is pull the trigger to activate the torch. Whether it's aluminum, silicone bronze, or steel, the system's going to recognize it, make sure that the program's set. We got all the features set for that, and then we're ready to start welding. Okay, once the system has been plugged in, to turn the system on, we simply flip the knob in the front. It's going to come back into the very last thing that it was set up at. So if we were doing aluminum, it's going to come back into the aluminum program with the very last settings that were on that at that time. Now to change from aluminum to silicone bronze or steel, all we have to do is simply pull that torch, hold that trigger down, and then it's going to activate it and tell us that we've switched to the silicone bronze. It's going to pull up whatever program was used last on that system. If we wanted to go to steel, we simply lift up that torch, hold the trigger down, and then it's going to activate that one and go into the last mode that was used with the steel. For checking the wire and making sure that we've got the right program, we can simply lift the lid up and we're going to see a chart with the different wire sizes, the different materials, and how it's going to be used for welding, whether it's a pulse weld or it's going to be a short circuit type weld. Some of them are programmed to be able to use on either, some are just for one or the other. So the chart's going to identify that. It's also going to identify the min and max roller pressure on there so that you can identify and adjust accordingly. To adjust, if we were going to do aluminum, again, I'm going to pull the trigger on aluminum. That's going to activate the aluminum. It's going to go into the last program that was used with aluminum. We want to verify that we are using the correct wire. So it's going to say a 1.0 millimeter wire. If we need to change that, we can simply depress the red button inward, hold it for a couple seconds. It's going to come up to the settings. We press it quickly again. It's going to come up into the program settings. So we can verify, or if we need to change the wire program, we can do that. Press the button. It's going to come up to the settings. Hold the button down, back to the programs here. With this dial, we can also adjust the amperage, or we can adjust the thickness. If we wanted to adjust just the material thickness, you'll notice that the amperage changes. Our wire speed's also going to change accordingly with that being a synergic welder. If I need to have a little hotter weld, same material coming out, I can do a quick press on the button, and at that point I can adjust the arc length. So I can adjust it to create a little hotter weld with the same material or a little cooler weld with the same material, depending on how the material is welding. And press the button, we're back to the program ready to weld. And then we have a lot of other features when it comes to aluminum on what we're capable of doing as far as spot welds, plug welds. We've got hot starts, crater fills, things like that that we can activate and adjust accordingly to whatever we're welding as far as the material. In the programs, we go into a process which is pulsed. If we hold that down, we go into a pulsed or short circuit, so we can adjust that. Simply depress the button at that point. That's going to activate that. We're going to stay in the pulse mode. We can go into the start mode, which is a 2 trigger or 4 trigger. Again, simply press the button down and adjust that accordingly. Press the button again. We go into spot weld, whether it's off, hot start. You can turn on, turn off. Crater fill, same thing, press the button down, turn it on, turn it off. Double pulse. If we want to go to a single pulse, we just simply turn that, put it off. Now you're going to be just at single pulse. Press again, put it back on. Now we're at double pulse again. Frequency you can adjust, pulse setup, duty cycle, arc correction, inductance, push full force, burn back, soft start. And again, there's multiple programs that we can work with on this. One of the other features that I want to show too is a factory reset. So at this point, one of the last things that's on here is factory. It's off, press that button, we can turn it to all, hit that, and then go into and just reset the entire system back to factory settings. All right, to show the simplicity of welding, again, all we're gonna do is we're gonna activate the aluminum, hold the trigger down, pops up, and we wanna make sure that we've got the settings correct for this. We're gonna be welding a 2.5 millimeter coupon. So we wanna make sure it's a 1.0 millimeter wire, and we're gonna adjust the material thickness. And we'll probably just start out at a 2.2 millimeter, do our first weld. Make sure that your gas is set up properly. And with this weld, what you can see is we started off really cold, and then we started getting really hot, and we have a crater left at the end. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make some mild adjustments to the settings and redo this and see where we're at from that point. Okay, to make adjustments, again, we're gonna depress the red button inward and hold it for a couple of seconds. Goes into our settings. And what we wanna do is we wanna change. And since the weld started off cold, we're going to turn on the hot start. And what that's going to do is bring up a couple other settings for this. One is this start current. And with the material thickness that it's at, I'm going to set this at about 185% to start off with. That way I can get a really hot weld to start off with. The start current time, it's going to weld at that temperature for about a half a second. And then the slope time is the time that it takes to slope back down to the normal current. We're going to set that at 0.0 or 0.1. Then we're going to go down to crater fill. Since at the end of the weld we had a crater, it's off. We're going to turn on the crater fill. Turn that to the on position. That'll bring up a couple other settings. One is the slope time. That's at a 0.5 seconds, so a half a second for it to slope down. And the temperature that it's going to slow down to is, it's going to slow down as far as a current down to 50% of what the normal weld would be. And then the time that it takes to fill that is going to be a 0.7 seconds. With all that, we're going to go ahead and click back into the weld program, and we were at 2.5. I noticed it was getting hot during the weld, so we're going to slope that down to about a 2.2, and then we're going to do another weld coupon with this. And what that did was it produced a much hotter weld in the beginning, nice and steady, and then it filled our crater at the end for us. The next function we're going to show you is how to use the silicone bronze torch. So we're going to go ahead and grab this torch off the rack. And again, to change from one welding mode to the next mode, all we have to do is depress a trigger on the torch, and it's going to pop up and tell us that we're now in that measuring mode or the welding mode with the silicone bronze. This is a 0.8 millimeter, and we're welding probably a 1 millimeter sheet. So we're going to adjust this down to 1 millimeter. And again, since we've got the going from aluminum to Silicone bronze, we're using the same gas. We don't have to change anything out. As soon as we hit the button, we're ready to start welding now.